The following is a conversation with Madea. Ann is an accomplished senior technology executive with over 20 years of experience. Ann recently served as the Executive Vice President and U.S. Chief Information Officer for HSBC, one of the world's largest banking and financial services companies. Ann has held U.S., global, and America's leadership positions while driving digital transformation, cloud initiatives, cybersecurity programs, all while delivering to the business, to customers, to stakeholders. And now, my conversation with Ann Madea. So Ann Madea, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for having me.
This will be so fun. Okay, are you ready for the first question?
I am ready for the first question. Let's go.
All right. So, true or false, communicating value is hard?
Yeah, I think it can be difficult. Absolutely, it can be difficult. And I think there's a couple of reasons. I think that if you start a program or if you start a process or some sort of, change or transformation within an organization, if you haven't been clear among all of the stakeholders, so your business partners, your operations team, your IT team, the heads of business, the CEO, if you haven't been clear about what the outcome is going to look like, what does success look like, then communicating value is going to be really difficult. And I think you also have different stakeholders. So what is important to a particular stakeholder? In some cases, the cost savings. In other cases, generating revenue. In other cases, it's mitigating risk. So I think it's understanding, especially with your business partners, understanding what's important and what is the value that a technology organization is going to bring to that leadership team and to your business partners. So yeah, it can be tough.
And that's a lot of work, right?
Oh, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. I have my CIO is actually presented to the leadership team every single month, costs, any incidents, how programs are going, where they needed their support, and what sort of escalation. So yeah, it can be really tough, but so critical and so important.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Excellent. Okay, and so we forgot to mention that the format of this is we take turns asking questions. I've prepared some, you prepared some. That was like the foundational question. So I think you can go next.
Okay, Paul. So I'm going to ask you a really important question. What is important in an organization to create a culture of innovation and learning?
Wow. Innovation and learning. They're kind of the same thing, kind of different, aren't they? Wow. Yeah. Okay, so I kind of prepared some thoughts on this, but I will give you three things that I think. This is my opinion, right? My opinion is that the first thing you need for innovation and learning is an investment vocabulary. Okay, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. So the second thing I think is a portfolio mindset. Okay. Third thing is ideation as a habit. Let's see, that's three, right? And then the fourth thing, very important, is fluid teams. So investment vocabulary, portfolio mindset, innovation, ideation as a habit, and fluid teams. So investment vocabulary, so instead of saying project, we say idea or investment idea, right? Instead of saying program, we say portfolio, right? Instead of saying outcome, deliverable, we say outcome, okay? So, and there are more. That's how you hack the culture, just by starting to talk differently, right? And translate. The second thing is portfolio mindset. Very simple, I think, is instead of, for a given investment idea, like an app, you're going to make an app, right? That's an idea. We don't know if it's going to work. We have no clue, right? But maybe it's part of a sales, tech portfolio. And so if you're approaching it with the expectation, hey, most of these are not going to launch, but we're going to learn stuff. We're going to experiment. We're going to pilot some of them even. But the goal is for the portfolio to produce an ROI, right? Because we have one or two winners. But we're always learning, we're always trying new things. So that's portfolio mindset. And then ideation as a habit. There's a great book out there called Ideas Are Free. It's from like 1975, right? But it talks about basically throwing away your employee suggestion box and building an integrated idea management system, okay? That makes ideation a cultural norm. Like you're expected to come to each meeting with 2 ideas, depending on the focus. So, so that's key, right? And it always pays off because your employees are the ones who are right there, right? They know.
They know it better than anyone. They're living it.
Exactly. And then the whole fluid teams. It's team members that flow, across and within teams, across and within investment ideas, what we used to call projects, right? And they're not afraid of tying their reputation to a given idea because it might only make it to pilot. It might not even make it out of experimentation, right? But so, does that answer your question?
I love that, Paul. I love it.
Oh,
it does.
thank you.
And, I think it's also creating a culture where employees trust that senior leaders will support them. And this whole fear of failure. I remember we would run hackathons. So we would run global hackathons, or we would run North American hackathons, or Americas. And the excitement and you would see people, they would be early in the morning, they would be here late at night, they'd be in the weekends, my door would be open, and they would come in and say, we just want to show you, we need 5 minutes of your time, we want to show you what we're going to do for this hackathon. And creating that culture and supporting your team, and like you said, Paul, may or may not work, but I'll tell you, I have seen some great successes coming out of hackathons, and you have to, to create and to have an environment like that that's what you want, especially in technology. I was in banking for so many years. To have this culture of creativity and excitement is really how you change the business, and you have to support it. You have to know as a leader that's important, and you have to support your team members.
Right, and we mentioned in the introduction that you went from programmer to CIO, right? So in that journey, how much of this culture hacking and pioneering these ideas of not everything has to succeed, or failure is learning, and safe teams is very important. Where in that journey did you kind of pick that up and then deploy it, or maybe all the way through?
Yeah, I had some. So I was with both Household International and then HSBC. They bought Household International in 2003, and so many different types of leaders. Some in some ways we were. Sometimes you had to just heads down if you're selling the credit card business, if you're involved in the regulators, and sometimes you just have to be heads down and know when you just have to get the job done. And other times you've got that freedom. And what we try and say is, don't put aside, learning is important. And I don't think we can sit down and say, okay, everybody's going to be out for a week now, and they're going to take this training. I think right now what we're saying is put aside some time on a Monday afternoon. I had one of my directs, he was the chief data officer, he would put aside time every Saturday morning, and he would learn and try different things. But I think it just depends on the organization. But I think that organizations that don't encourage transformations or any sort of creativity, I think they're going to be in trouble, and I think they're going to really start losing employees to cultures that are innovative and that are creative and that are changing how a business is run. And I think, like I said, I've had really great leaders who have encouraged myself, my team members, to just think outside the box and look outside the box. And I think that's really how, like you said, I've gone from programmer to CIO, and I certainly didn't do it by heads down, not thinking through and not looking at different options. And the business loves when you come back with options. And the business will come back and say, we need this problem solved. And you work together as a team and as an organization, and you come up with 3 and 4 options saying, here's how we think we can do it. that's the exciting part when you go back to the business and say, here's how we think we can do it, and this is why I think this is the best way. But always presenting options and having the business, that input saying, yeah, but you didn't think about this, or you might want to think about this. That's the fun part, yeah.
Absolutely. And yeah, and fun is a big part of it too, because you know, those classes in school when, you know, where it was a fun class and a not a fun class, and you learned more in the fun class, right?
We did. Then professors that were just, you know, you will get this done. And like I said, sometimes you just have to do that. And other times you just really have to have the freedom. And I'll tell you, there are a lot of people that I have found in my career, Paul, that are what I'll call weekend warriors. You wouldn't know it, but they are home experimenting. They are at home, you know, coding on the weekends, and sometimes you wouldn't know it. You have to find those hidden gems. You have to find them, and then, you know, realize that, pull them out and start really bringing them into the conversation, because there are a lot of really smart people that are doing some really creative things. You might not even know about it. So it's sort of, as a leader, you have to find those people and really encourage them and support them. They're the ones that are going to change, you know, to change the organization.
Right. That is such good advice. I mean, okay. All right. Thank you. All right. My turn. So, Anne, you have, in your career, done some incredible things, had some incredible accomplishments that some people said were, you know, impossible, right? So can you share an example with us of that?
Sure. Well, I've actually have two really good examples I want to walk through. Okay. Years ago, I took over, and I was just a manager, and my team and I had always delivered and really delivered exceptionally well. That was really the culture. And there was a program that was in process to replace the mortgage servicing system. And when I took it over, it was sort of, you know, not really working well, and I didn't really have a project plan, to show how it was going to be delivered. And the budget was kind of 3 sentences, and somebody said, well, Anne needs to take that over and run with that. So, of course, I pulled together a leadership team and great people I knew that would deliver, and it was tough.
Wait. You said the budget was 3 sentences?
Yeah, 3 sentences. And so you kind of looked at it and thought, well, how much do we have? How much have we spent? What have we spent the money on? You know, those kind of basic questions that you need for any program when you're putting in a new mortgage servicing system, kind of those basic questions. Sure. And pulled together this great team, and the team really delivered on it. So obviously, just, you know, it wasn't easy. But they delivered. The team ended up 30,000 programs, which, if anyone that isn't necessarily technical in the audience, 30,000 programs is a lot of programs. And we went in with no critical, no high. We had just maybe 2 medium tickets. You know, won all kinds of awards, the team. And somebody said, you know, it wasn't possible, but this team did it. Everyone delivered, and it was really incredible. So that was one experience. So I've got so many over my career. But the other one was, I was appointed the Chief Information Officer in September 2016. And when I took over, I had heard from the prior CIO, just focus on other things. This major transformation program that had been running for 3 years already, it's fine. The people running it, everything is good. Communication is good. And really focus on regulators, the boards, other things, costs. And so I did. So a couple of months into it, I thought, well, I'm going to do a deep dive on this program, and we had some people coming in into the United States to do a review, and really realized that we didn't have a plan that showed how this program was going to be delivered, and that was really tough it was really a learning. And we were 3 years into this program. People were pretty tired of this program by now. They just wanted it delivered. You know, we had people coming in and saying, what in the world is going on? So I was appointed by the U.S. CEO and by my boss, the global CEO, to run this program and to be the Chief Information Officer for the United States. So not easy. People were pretty not motivated. They were really struggling with, how is this program going to be delivered? What I realized initially was, aside from not having a project plan or a program that was going to show how this thing was going to be delivered on time, there was really no communication coming out on it anymore. And so I started immediately, sort of replacing and reviewing the leadership team. We had some great people on that leadership team. And then I had to sort of supplement it with people that I knew were going to deliver this program. And we did that and started communication program. We were talking about marathons, and sort of that was the theme of it. And just an amazing group of people. Basically moved to Buffalo for probably 18 months to 20 months. So I kind of lived there. The whole leadership team was there, and really started to see progress. And yeah, a lot of people said it was impossible, but we delivered. I brought in real experts. Received a tremendous support from my boss and people across the globe. And the program delivered, and it delivered successfully. And we balanced the bank on the first day. We processed lots of payments. I won't say the numbers, but lots of payments on a daily basis, and there were no issues. So, the amount of integration in the United States that had to happen, the customer experience that really changed the organization in the United States, the operational savings, the process changes. I think there were 900 policy changes and process changes for operations. So we really changed the United States and really made a big impact. And such partnership with our business. I've never seen anything like it. So yeah, it was pretty amazing. And that's a really good example for me of people saying something's impossible, but nothing is impossible. It really isn't. You get the right team in place, you get the right support, you get the right communication in place, and people start trusting you. And I think the whole thing really is trust. And are you here? Are you here to support us? Or you can't go into an organization or to some big transformation program and say, what you've done, everything you've done is completely incorrect and I'm here to save the day. That is not how you do it as a leader. You come in and you say exactly what it is. You've done a lot of great work. We need to get it over the finish line, so let's do this together. That's how it works.
That's awesome. Those are great examples. I'm sure our audience is going to love that. That's great. Thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
Okay, Ann, it's your turn to ask me a question.
Okay, Paul, here we go. All right, so both growth and market threats continue to remain a top priority for our business and transformation in most organizations. Due to this pandemic, many organizations will also now be focusing on cost cutting and reprioritizing initiatives. A lot of order book changes. With all of these changes, how do you see organizations adjusting to these changes and communicating their value when everything across the globe is changing?
Absolutely. That's a great question. So how do they adapt and navigate all the assumptions that existed when they set their priorities, when they set their investments, when they started this work, right?
Yeah.
Right.
A year ago planning.
Yeah. You can't sell a refrigerator to an Eskimo. Why? Because they don't need one, right? So imagine so anyway, so I think I'm going to mention, three ways to navigate the change, and then a bonus way. I'll say the bonus way first. The bonus way is to think of everything you're doing, active and just started or near completion, as your backlog, right? Your backlog of stuff, of investments. That's your portfolio, and then obviously you're gonna realign and reprioritize and groom that backlog based on the new reality. And so some things you might be better off just cutting or pausing, right? And move the team to something else. So that's the bonus one. So number one, invite investment ideas. So we talked about before about making ideation a cultural norm. So the message is, hey, we have a new world here. Some of the things that we're doing aren't gonna work. That's okay. We're gonna want to find new things. So everybody, bring your investment ideas. We're ordering pizza. What do you want on it? There's that analogy again, right? So number one. Then number two, I would say invest in experiences, not systems, not functions, not even capabilities, right? Because capabilities support experiences, whether it's your customer experience or your employee experience or your supplier experience or your partner experience, right? So when you organize according to experiences and the capabilities that support those and the products and technology that support that, automatically you're going to adapt to what's going on because you're going to have to go out there and talk to people about their experience. And then this is key, and a lot of finance departments are going to struggle with this one because it's invest incrementally as your investment confidence grows for a given idea, right? So when your idea first starts out, yeah, it's a great idea, but we have no confidence that it's going to be working. As you move from idea to value, right, your investment confidence grows. And so we should start getting away from the annual budgeting process and maybe make it quarterly, right? And then as ideas show more promise, they move from getting funded for experiments to, hey, let's build a prototype. Hey, let's pilot that, see what happens. And then for the ones that can prove that they create value, you launch them. Then you iterate, right? And they're a live product that's creating new value in this new world. So those are the three things. What do you think?
Paul, I love those. Absolutely. And it's interesting also, if you take a look into startups and fintechs, you have to be able to adapt faster. And I love the idea of, we actually started that where you're starting the budget cycle 6 months before in some cases 6 months before the start of the year. Things change so rapidly. We've got Agile now, we have the fintechs, like I said, the startups, and you have to be able to adapt. If you see this great product, how can you integrate this into your organization? And we just can't, we have to be, it's absolutely critical that we are more flexible now and more agile in our thinking.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Okay, my turn, Ann. So, next, final question maybe? I'm not sure. So you've seen a ton of IT investments, right? Some that went well, some that didn't, right? Can you think of one that maybe should never have been attempted at all, or maybe if it was approached the right way, it could have created actually more value for significantly less budget?
Absolutely. I have lots of examples, both inside and outside the organization. So I think sometimes organizations go through, we have to build it, we have to build it versus buy. And I think sometimes we have to build everything. My organization and many other organizations out there, I have friends everywhere in technology and on the business side. I think sometimes you really have to evaluate why you want to build it internally. I think if you take a look at the size of the organization, the amount of money it's going to take to build it, do you have the right skill sets within the organization to be able to do this? What state is the business in? Do they need to grow rapidly? Are we involved in heavy regulatory, which a lot of banks were? A lot of key things that you have to take into account. And I think if you do your homework, you send out those RFPs, you see what's out on the market, I think you really have to take that into account. I think more organizations really do need to be looking outside of the market to see if there are products that will satisfy. It doesn't have to be 100%. You don't have to say, if this external product doesn't have 100% of every piece of functionality that is absolutely required, we really need to be thinking more outside the box. Does it fulfill 80%? Can we tweak it? Can we make it work for this organization? Right. And I really do think we have to do that. I'm starting to have conversations with other organizations now, and what they're saying is, I have this big product that was sort of, everyone agreed to it, and we're paying a lot of money in maintenance. We don't really know how to use this product right now. And, who brought it in? How did they bring it in? What was it supposed to do? And versus just kind of sitting there, what are the additional functionality that we need to roll out to the business partners, and what makes sense. And so I think I see two things, build versus buy, and I do think, again, we should be looking at fintechs and startups. You could just integrate it into your systems. But I think the other thing is really, if you have something sitting there, how do you leverage it? How do you work with the organization to really make your investment work for you? And those are some of the learnings.
I love what you said about 80%, right? So many people
80%.
think requirements are requirements. No, they're not.
They're not. They're absolutely not, no. And it doesn't always have to just, like you said, it just doesn't have to be that 100%. And I think really understanding what the product can do, and you can go in and adjust it if you need, but what is really needed to drive this business? If it's a regulatory requirement, those are always, but do you understand the regulatory requirement enough to say this absolutely has to be in there? I think a lot of times we've gone through and said, this is a regulatory requirement, and when we've dug in, it actually was not necessarily a regulatory requirement. And so I think you have to have those tough conversations and really understand those requirements, and I don't think we do that enough. Not, anywhere, any organization. Like I said, all these conversations I'm having, everyone seems to have the same issue. Ask the right question.
Right. That's great. Well, thank you for that answer, because it makes a whole heck of a lot of sense, because building is like 10 to 100 times more expensive than renting or buying, or, so.
It is.
That's great.
I agree.
All right, Ann, it's your turn to ask me the third question.
Okay, Paul. So, love LinkedIn, love your LinkedIn profile. Really well done.
Oh, thanks.
You've got something out there in your profile that said you introduced a no prep, no homework requirement elicitation process that reduced participation overhead for executive stakeholders by 50%. Really intriguing to me, and I would love to walk through and understand what that means.
Awesome. Yeah, it is a great invention, and I just stumbled upon it one day because I had a lot of people to talk to and a lot of ideas to get and requirements to gather, and it's been working ever since. So, ever heard of Kepner-Trego, or KT?
No.
Kepner-Trego is a secret magical way to get executive teams to agree on stuff, okay? And any team, right? Because it forces you to either force rank or score, use numbers when and then use a multivariable prioritization scheme for anything, whether you're trying to solve a problem, build a product, land an airplane, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So I stole some ideas from KT, and so the process is very simple. I would email you to say, hey, Ann, do you have 20 minutes tomorrow to get on a Zoom call? Mm-hmm. We're going to start going through some ideas and get your perspective on things. And they'll be, okay, that sounds great, but what's this for? And I'd say, well, for example, we have in 12 months, we are going to try to move cross-sell performance up 70% from where it is today, because we bought all these companies. Now we're going to do that. Okay, great. So that first conversation, we talk about, okay, cross-sell, right? And this is like a level 2 or level 3 person. So yes, so which of your people impact cross-sell results? And of course, we'll mention sales directors and maybe customer support and stuff like that, right? So we get a list of people, maybe 10 people, right? And then the next question in that session is, so what do they do? I'm sure they each do 100 things, right? But what do they do that would possibly impact cross-sell? Then we get a subset of tasks. And that might be it for that conversation, right? Boom, done, go away.
Right.
Then I call you up again and say, hey, Ann, you got time for session 2 this week, 20 minutes. Great. Get on a call. And so while I'm interviewing you, I'm typing out, the list of people, the tasks, and you can see it on my screen. So that I'm hearing you, right? Which is huge, because you get to rip through this stuff. So then that second session, we're going to talk about, is that task easy for that person or hard for that person? On a scale from 1 to 5, Oh, and really, I think I phrased it, how much support do they have in doing that task to drive cross-sell? And if they have 5, it's perfect support. if they have a 1, there's a gap there. So we get these, tasks and support numbers, and then we might call it a day, right? And then a third one, I think that, and that's it. I think that's all we need. Because now we know we have the business model, right, for investments. We know the domains, we know the tasks and the work, we know where the gaps are, and then we can kind of, actually there's one more session. So the third session is then, hey, Ann, let's get back on the phone. So what do you think they need? If we were buying stuff, if we were buying training, if we were buying technology, if we're going to bring in a data guy or someone to do some whatever, right, what would they need to get that 1 to a 5 maybe? And those are the ideas, right? And so from there, then you can develop some solution options for those ideas, maybe, and then you can go get some relative cost numbers from the architecture guys on those things. And so now you have solution ideas with an impact that you can, it's measurable, it's a number, and you have a relative cost. So now you can do leverage analysis on your portfolio. And nobody had to prepare anything, nobody had to do any homework. That's my process. What do you think?
Paul, I think it's absolutely fantastic. I think sometimes it's really difficult to really understand what the teams are looking for, and you've taken a process and moved it forward and said, here's how we're going to help, how I'm going to help you develop, ideas and get them generated. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Great process.
Oh, thanks. Okay, my turn, Ann. So when we talked last, you talked about the concept of the dragon's den. Where are my fingers? Okay. Dragon's den, and it kind of reminded me of Shark Tank. So tell us about the dragon's den concept.
Interesting. Great question. Very good question. It is actually, if I think about it, I guess it is a little bit about Shark Tank, a little like it and similar. I think sometimes we don't hold people accountable to numbers or metrics. And if we say, here's a project, here's a program, here's a deliverable, here's a transformation program, and we're not necessarily holding them accountable to that deliverable. So as part of the process, when you say, in this transformation program, this is what I expect to happen. I expect to generate revenue. I expect to mitigate risk. This is how. Here's how we're going to track it. Here are the numbers. And put those results into someone's, into their goals. So the process is really, you bring in people and say, I've got this idea, and this is what I think is going to happen. And you hold them accountable. And it's sort of, Susie says this and Johnny says this, or who's going to generate the most revenue, and really presenting how it's going to change the organization. And when you go through that process, it really forces people to think through, is this idea really something that is going to change the organization? And then how do you hold people accountable for that? And I think this whole Dragon's Den is really just a process of putting, I don't want to say it sounds very, it's really putting people together in a room and sort of having them put their ideas forward, and they would have put all the thought and metrics. And a lot of times when people say Dragon's Den, oh my gosh, is this really going to work? And then they're forced to put that time in, because you're going in front of somebody, maybe the CEO of an organization, maybe someone from his leadership team or her leadership team, and they're doing that presenting. And that forces people to do the homework ahead of time. And I think it's such a great concept, and in the business world, such just a great way to hold people accountable. Put it in their goals. If it doesn't work, you can adjust it. So quarter by quarter, what do I see is going to happen? What do I think is going to happen? Adjust the roles or the programs up or down. I think also sometimes we say, well, we just have to get this program finished. We committed. You always have the option to back out. You always have the option to go back and reevaluate. Does this make sense? So you set up those goals on a quarterly basis, and then you say, it's going to work or it isn't going to work, or here's how I'm going to adjust. So again, it just forces people to do their homework. And I think it's such a great concept.
That's awesome. I love that. I think some people out there are going to start using Dragon's Den as, it's kind of like a hot seat. It's kind of like a,
it is.
I love it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Great question.
Okay. All right, Ann, it's been great having you on the podcast. You're amazing, and I think our audience is going to, really think that too and acknowledge that. And so if somebody wants to connect with you and learn more, just chat, how can they find you?
Oh, Paul, I really enjoyed this podcast. Great questions, great discussion. So I am on LinkedIn, so Ann, A-N-N, Madea, M-A-D-E-A. On LinkedIn, I'm also on Twitter at Madea Ann. Would love to have everyone follow me.
Awesome, awesome. I will put that in the description below, and I'll probably put it on top. All right, thank you. It's a wrap. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for everything. This was great.